Hey everybody, how ya doing out there? It's the one and only Mr. Bookman, and I will be reading Cranberry Halloween by Wende and Harry Devlin. Please enjoy. Cranberry Halloween. The New England October skies were bright and blue. Orange and yellow pumpkins lay in the fields, and the smell of cider was everywhere. Halloween! Wonderful Halloween is coming, said Maggie, throwing her hat in the air. Grandmother stopped stirring her cake. Halloween is coming, but there will be 2 weeks of hard work before it does. All the money for the new dock must be in on Halloween night, or it can't be finished by winter. A week ago, when Cranberry Port dock had been swept away by a windstorm, the township had gathered in dismay at their town hall. What would Cranberry Port be without a dock? Where would they tie their boats? Where would the children gather to fish and swim? Where would they all meet to picnic and watch sunsets? We will build a new dock, said the mayor, and we will help to raise money, said Grandmother. Whiskers, I have my grandfather's box money. Then I shall be a treasure, Mr. Whiskers, said the mayor. And I will build blinking money with my life, said the old clam digger, saluting proudly. But not everyone wanted Mr. Whiskers to be the treasurer. Mr. Grape was not about to let his favorite neighbor enjoy such an honor. I object, said Mr. Grape. I beg. He banged his cane on the floor. I double object. Mr. Whiskers doesn't pull his weeds, doesn't paint his house, and doesn't wash his windows. He'll lose our money. Grandmother stood and looked at Mr. Grape in the eyes. Mr. Whiskers could never let his friends down. The crowd quite agreed with Grandmother, and Mr. Grape left, shaking his cane angrily. The people of Cranberry Port went home and began to plan how they would earn money. Everyone wanted to help Grandmother, and her friends would have pie and cake sales. Maggie would sell old books. Mr. Whiskers began to gather clams to make chowder to sell at the general store. One day, Mr. Whiskers walked up the long path to Mr. Grape's big brick house on the hill to ask for a donation. He waved to Mr. Grape 2 red-headed gardeners and rang the front doorbell. Mr. Grape jumped in range when he saw Mr. Whiskers. Never! I'll I'll give you no money for your dock, you whiskering humbug, and stay away from my house. Mr. Whiskers forgot all his good intentions. Why, you old scoundrel, where's your town pride? Mr. Grape slammed the door, grumbling and growling. Mr. Whiskers made his way back over the cranberry bogs to his teeny gray cottage on the beach. The night of Halloween finally arrived, cold and moonlit. Tonight all the money will be counted at Town Hall, and a wonderful party would follow with cider and donuts for all. Grandmother packed her blanket with sugar donuts and went ahead to prepare for the party. Later, Mr. Whiskers stopped by to walk Maggie into town. Maggie wore a pink and green clown costume with a pointed clown's hat. Mr. Whiskers, dressed as a ghost, tapped his money box proudly. Almost full, he boosted to Maggie. They started for town. The rising winds in the pines and the screech of an owl were the only sounds in the blue night. A dark, empty house next to the bridge loomed against the sky. Do you have to pass that house tonight? Asked Maggie. It's not too bad. I played in it when I was a boy, said Mr. Whiskers. My old Aunt Prue lived there. Suddenly, Maggie whispered, "Stop, I hear someone behind us." Mr. Whiskers whirled to see two burly men in pirate costumes almost upon them. "Hand over the money box," one of them hissed. "Mind your blinking manners," roared Mr. Whiskers. "Nobody takes my money box." He grabbed Maggie's hand and ran up the vine-tangled path to the deserted house. The dark of the night and the heavy boots slowed the pursuing pirates. Running like the wind, Maggie and Mr. Whiskers fled in the front door. They pulled it open and squeezed in. Panting, Mr. Whiskers locked the door behind. "Run for the back door and lock it," shouted Mr. Whiskers. Maggie felt her way through the darkened house, found the back kitchen door and bolted it just in time, for in the window she saw the fierce mask of one of the pirates. He pounded on the door and shouted, "Open up! We have you trapped!" Mr. Whiskers and Maggie, their hearts beating wildly, leaned against the kitchen wall and listened. The old house was filled with noises. Upstairs the doors creaked and the wind moaned through the turrets, and shutters banged. "I think I don't believe in ghosts," said Mr. Whiskers unusually. "I think I don't either," echoed Maggie. "Good," said Mr. Whiskers. "Let's find a way out of here." Mr. Whiskers looked all over the kitchen. "Maggie, I remember something. We used to come in from the spring house by an underground passageway. Are you game to go down to the cellar?" Maggie thought of spiders and mice and damp darkness, but with sudden spirit, she said, "Let's go." Would you go? Mr. Whiskers led the way. At the foot of the squeaking cellar stairs, he struck a match. Struck a match. The dim light showed a rough, mossy door. Mr. Whiskers put his shoulder to the door and had it mightily. An ancient bolt snapped and the door swung away as mice shattered and spiders scattered into the darkness. Mr. Whiskers fought his way through the cobwebs. Maggie followed, clutching Mr. Whiskers' sheet, stumbling and groping through the underground passageway. They came in time to the spring house. At least, says Mr. Whiskers, and Maggie pushed their way into the clear night air. Mr. Whiskers whispered, "Mr. Whiskers, we can't slip away behind these pine. We could slip away behind these pine trees." Silently, they crept from the house back to the road and off to town. At town hall, grandmother worried and fussed. The mayor foamed and the rest of the party become impatient at the absence of Mr. Whiskers and Maggie. The children have paraded around in the costumes at feast of homemade donuts, and pitchers of golden cider was placed on the table. Everyone was excited to eat, but where were Mr. Whiskers and Maggie? And where was Cranberry Port's money? Mr. Grape jumped to his feet. He looked very pleased. "You wouldn't listen to me. I told you Mr. Whiskers couldn't be trusted. You wouldn't see that old good-for-nothing tonight." While Mr. Grape scolded the mayor and the crowd, a ghost and a small clown slipped into the midst of the party. After whispering to the sheriff, the ghost made his way through the crowd to Mr. Grape. In a sudden flurry, the ghost flew off his sheet, and there was Mr. Whiskers stood in a grinding triumph. "Well, suffering codfish, I'm here, and so is my money box," said Mr. Whiskers. Mr. Grape grokked and grasped and fell back in his chair. "You had the money box?" he squealed exactly. Behind the crowd, the sheriff's voice boomed. He held two pirates in tow. It's just as at Mr. Whiskers said, "There's two rascals thought they had Mr. Whiskers and Maggie trapped in the old Peabody's house." Mr. Whiskers stared at an unmasked pirate. "Why, are Why, they are Mr. Grape's gardeners, he said in a amazement. He's the one who made us do it, said the gardeners, pointing to Mr. Grape. Mr. Grape began to tiptoe through the back door when the sheriff's voice rang out. Sit right there until I decide what to do with you, sir. Now the mayor had been counting the money for the new dock, rose to his feet and faced the crowd. Bad news, he said. There just isn't enough money for the new dock. The crowd groaned. Mr. Grape raised his head. Would you allow this public spirit citizen to make up the difference? He looked at the sheriff's direction with what he hoped was a winning smile. The sheriff turned to Mr. Whiskers. Well, it's up to you, sir. Mr. Whiskers took a bite of a donut, brushing off the sugar from his brass button coat, and hummed a little tune. Slowly, he smiled through the whiskers and said, for the folks of Cranberry Port, we might accept that blinking offer. The sheriff took his hand from Mr. Grape's shoulder and turned to the pirates. And you two had better tend to your gardening. Mr. Grape sighed with relief. The rest of the evening was a Halloween celebration. Cranberry Port would have a new dock, and everyone delighted in bobbing for apples, singing, and drinking cider. You are a fine treasurer, said his grandmother as she watched Mr. Whiskers bob for apples. Yes, I'm a blooming wonder, said Mr. Whiskers. Maggie laughed. Grandmother shook her head. And Mr. Whiskers went down in the tub again in a final try for the apple. Well, looks like they got that dock after all, huh? And they finally made it to the party. Well, everybody, I hope all of you enjoyed this Halloween story, and if you did, can you go thumbs up? Hit that thumbs up button. Can you do that? When you do that, it will bring people here to my channel. Also, if you're new and you came along this book reading, hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to my channel and check out my other readings I got plenty, so feel free to check them out. Also, hit that notification bell. Whenever I upload, you will be notified. But until my next book reading, they call me Mr. Bookman. And this book reading's over. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.